All right, let's dive into something truly fascinating today. We're exploring the timeless wisdom embedded in an ancient Buddhist sermon.
We are. We're looking at excerpts from a Bhattānumodanāgāthā, which is, well, basically a sermon of appreciation given after a meal offering. This one's from November 18th, 1954.
1954.
Yeah, and it's just this remarkable blend of, practical ethics, really profound spiritual insights, and even some surprisingly down-to-earth advice.
So our mission here is to unpack these teachings for you, figure out what it truly means to live a pure life, maybe explore these mechanics of merit and spiritual progress, which can sound a bit abstract sometimes, but this is straight from the source. What really strikes me about this material, just looking through it, is how direct it is, and how it seems to connect the tangible, the everyday, with the deeply spiritual.
Indeed. And you'll find these aren't just, lofty concepts to think about. They're presented as actual, actionable principles for daily life. Doesn't matter if you're a layperson juggling work and family or someone on a renunciate path.
That's a great way to frame it. Now, this specific sermon, it was given at Wat Paknam during a Pha Pa. That's a forest robe offering, right?
Exactly, a Pha Pa offering. It sounds like it was quite a significant community event. Lots of monks and lay devotees supporting it.
And the Abbot of Wat Paknam, he really comes across strongly in this account, described as having unwavering resolve.
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating how his leadership style, his policies, directly reflected that resolve. He had this really strict policy. Monastic robes were never sold, only given away.
Never sold, only given. Okay.
And beyond that, he just provided this unwavering support for every monk and novice there, covered huge expenses. Like, the text mentions a monthly electricity bill over 2,000 baht.
Wow, back then especially.
Right, ensuring they lacked nothing essential. It's quite something.
That is a substantial commitment for a monastery. And the sermon, it talks about his unique leadership approach when he first arrived, facing opposition from the community, even his own monks, apparently.
Yes, and his strategy was not fighting, but not fleeing.
Not fighting, but not fleeing.
He just stood his ground, quietly, steadfastly. And instead of escalating conflict or just giving up, this unwavering stance actually led to the monastery flourishing.
It's a powerful lesson in, quiet strength, isn't it?
It really is. And the impact, it wasn't just local. His teachings drew students from all over the world. Foreigners, too.
Really?
Yeah. Remarkably, some of his students are apparently teaching in London now, in England, actively spreading what's called the Dhamma of Wat Paknam. And there were plans then to send another teacher to Japan. It really speaks to the global reach, the legacy.
That's incredible. So, okay, that's the leadership. What does this sermon actually say about the individual's role? Especially for, most of us navigating daily life outside a monastery.
Well, it really emphasizes this term, Dhammanutamapayapana.
Dhammanutamapayapana. Bit of a mouthful.
It is, but it basically means practicing according to the Dhamma, especially for householders, people juggling, gardening, farming, trading, all the everyday stuff.
And the foundation for that practice.
For lay practitioners, the absolute bedrock is the Kuśala-karmapatha 10. The 10 Wholesome Actions.
Okay, the 10 Wholesome Actions.
And what's really striking here is how they're framed. They aren't just like moral suggestions. They're presented as the literal architecture of what it means to be human.
It's the architecture of being human. Wow.
Yeah. The sermon warns that without these 10 actions covering body, speech, and mind, there are profound consequences for our future existence.
Sounds pretty fundamental. Can you quickly walk us through those 10?
Sure. So for bodily purity, it's basically abstaining from killing, from stealing, and from sexual misconduct. Pretty straightforward.
Right.
Then for verbal purity, 4 things. Abstaining from lying, from divisive speech, gossip that splits people up, from harsh speech, and from idle chatter, just meaningless talk.
Okay, got it.
And finally, mental purity, 3 things. Abstain from covetousness, like intense greed or wanting what others have, from ill will or hatred, and from wrong views, misunderstanding basic reality.
So those 10, upholding them makes one truly human, according to the sermon.
Explicitly. And the flip side is quite stark. A lack of this purity means one, and I quote, cannot be human in the future. It suggests rebirth in lower realms, ghosts, asuras, animals, even hell beings.
That's intense. And this is where it uses that analogy, the magnet and iron one.
Exactly. The text says only these pure actions allow a being to be sort of pulled into a human birth, like iron to a magnet.
Okay.
And it even gives this really striking example. It talks about a human born the size of a lime, just 7 inches long, who only survived 20 minutes after being born to a dog.
Born to a dog.
Yeah. Presented as evidence of how impure actions can lead to these kinds of, well, non-human or barely human rebirths. It's a very vivid warning about the karmic consequences of your actions.
That's an image that definitely sticks with you. And it doesn't stop at just personal purity, does it?
Yeah.
This Dhamma idea.
No, it extends outwards. It connects to Samasipipana, which is about being a master of your own purity, being unwavering in it.
Oh.
And then anuhamakari, which means living in conformity with the Dhamma. But it also means actively influencing others for the good.
So.
Like encouraging 10 others to be pure, genuinely rejoicing when you see 10 others being pure, and praising that purity in 10 others. It becomes a community effort almost.
Spreading the positivity. And it seems quite practical, too. Offering advice for ethical dilemmas.
Very practical, like the example about food. Don't kill animals yourself. But it suggests buying meat from animals already deceased is okay to avoid breaking the precept, even if it costs a bit more.
Interesting distinction.
And for monks, the advice is clear. Don't handle money directly. Let lay supporters manage expenses. The line is powerful. Losing wealth is fine, but do not lose precepts.
Priorities, right? Wealth versus ethical conduct. It also warns against fake purity, hypocrisy.
Yes, very strongly. Acting virtuous in public but being different in private, the sermon calls it killing oneself alive.
Keeping oneself alive.
Because you lose self-trust, that inner integrity, true purity, it argues, has to be consistent. The same in front and behind, as the text puts it.
It's about wholeness, integrity.
Exactly. It's not about putting on a show. It's an internal state that just naturally manifests consistently.
Okay, so that covers the lay practitioner's path. But what about those who commit more deeply to a more rigorous path? The sermon talks about how these same principles, Dhammaruddhapamapipana, Samichapepernau, and Apoakuri, apply to monastic practice too.
That's right. It outlines a progression. It starts with the upasatha, the 8 precepts, which lay people can observe temporarily, maybe on certain days, to get a taste of monastic discipline.
Okay, the 8 precepts.
Then you have novices who observe 10 precepts.
Mhm.
The key addition there is abstaining from accepting gold and silver, basically, money.
Right, the money thing again?
And finally, you have the fully ordained monks. They observe what's called a pariyanta parisutisila.
Appari, say that again?
A pariyanta parisutisila. It means boundless purity of precepts.
Boundless purity. That sounds, well, boundless. Much more than just a list of rules.
It absolutely is. I mean, the core monastic code, the Patimokkha, lists 227 key precepts. But the sermon emphasizes this boundless purity. It points to the wider Vinaya scriptures, implying potentially millions of subtle ethical points.
Millions. Wow.
It's a lifelong commitment to ever-deepening ethical sensitivity and awareness. Their training, called Sikhati, involves continually studying and practicing sila, precepts, samadhi, concentration, and panya, wisdom.
Sila, samadhi, panya, the 3 pillars.
Exactly. To truly grasp and actually walk the path of the Buddhas and the Arahants, the enlightened ones.
Okay, that leads us right into the internal purification stuff. The meditation aspect, the sermon talks about the cessation of formations. Sakara? What does that mean?
Yeah, sakara. Think of it like a complex machine gradually, intentionally powering down its different systems. First, there's the cessation of breath, or at least the awareness of breath fading. That's the bodily formation, kaya sakara. Your physical processes quiet right down.
Physical quieting. Got it.
Then comes the cessation of verbal thought, that internal chatter, the monologue. It stops. That's the verbal formation, vachisakara.
Inner silence.
And finally, the mental formation, siddhasakara. This is the cessation of feelings, particularly the pull of pleasure and the push of pain. The mind becomes profoundly still, undisturbed.
Wow. So when the mind reaches that level of stillness, what happens next, according to the sermon? It mentions spheres, duang.
Yes, exactly. A clear, bright sphere is said to appear, described as being potentially as large as the moon or the sun in the mind's eye.
Like a light.
A very clear, stable light or sphere. And this is presented as the crucial starting point for deeper inner realization. It's like a gateway or a focal point that guides the meditator further inward.
And from that sphere, there's a progression, like moving through layers.
Precisely. The sermon describes this path, the path of the Buddhas and Arahants as moving through a series of concentric spheres. You see that initial clear sphere, the mind settles right in its center.
Okay.
And that leads to the emergence of the next sphere, the sphere of Dhamma Anupassana Satipahana, which is essentially the sphere of deep mindfulness of Dhamma, of reality itself.
Mindfulness of Dhamma. Then what?
Then it progresses inward. Next comes the sphere of sila, precepts, then the sphere of samadhi, concentration, then the sphere of panya, wisdom.
The three pillars again, but as spheres.
Kind of manifesting internally, yes.
Yeah.
And the journey continues deeper to the sphere of vimutti, which means liberation.
Liberation.
And finally, to the sphere of immutiniyadasana. That's the knowledge and vision of liberation, seeing it directly. Each sphere represents a more refined level of insight, purity, and release.
So this whole internal journey, it culminates in seeing, what was it? Seeing one's own body that travels, like an out-of-body experience or something.
Something like that, perhaps akin to the subtle body experienced in dreams or deep meditation. The text presents it as signifying a direct, experiential understanding of this path. It's not just theory you read in a book. It's something you can supposedly see and undergo internally.
A direct internal practice.
Okay.
Okay. And underpinning all of this, the sermon brings up heedfulness, right? That famous quote.
Yes, absolutely central. Heedfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness is the path to death. Appamāda, pamāda.
Appamāda.
The sermon presents this single principle as the ultimate distillation, the very essence of all 84,000 sections of Dhamma the Buddha taught over 45 years.
The essence of everything. That phrase, path to the deathless, it's really powerful. Is heedfulness here just about being, like, careful in daily life?
Yeah.
Or is it something more profound?
It's much, much deeper than just being careful or cautious. In this context, heedfulness appamāda means constant, unwavering awareness, moment-to-moment vigilance across your precepts, your concentration, and your wisdom.
Constant awareness.
Yes. To the point, the sermon says, of even internally seeing the sphere of precepts and constantly maintaining that clear vision. It's presented as the direct, unswerving path to nirvana, the deathless state.
The deathless. It's such a captivating idea. Does the sermon explain what that is?
Yeah.
How far does this journey go?
It does, and it goes far beyond our usual human experience. The sermon describes 8 distinct, subtle bodies that beings can inhabit across different planes of existence.
8 subtle bodies.
Yeah, it's like levels of being. You start with the human body, then a subtle human body, then celestial, subtle celestial, then into the Brahma realms, form and subtle form, Brahma bodies, and even the Arupa Brahma, or formless Brahma bodies, and their subtle counterparts. It's like ascending through layers of reality, each more refined and longer lasting than the last.
So even these Brahma realms, some can live for incredibly long times, right?
Astonishingly long. The Arupa Brahma, the formless ones, can supposedly live for 84,000 eons or mahakalpas, almost unimaginable timescales. But, and this is crucial, the sermon states that all 8 of these bodies, even the highest Arupa Brahma, are still ultimately subject to death and rebirth. They are not the true deathless. They are still within the cycle.
Okay, so if even that isn't the end goal, what truly is this deathless state? Where is it found?
The true deathless, the sermon says, lies in the 9th body, the Dhammakaya.
Dhammakaya. The 9th body.
Yes. It's described visually as resembling a Buddha image with a lotus bud top, crystal clear, clear as a mirror. And importantly, it's said to be present, latently perhaps, within everyone.
Within everyone.
That's the teaching here. This body, the Dhammakaya, and its own higher stages of development corresponding to stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant, this is what can truly reach nirvana and is, in essence, immortal, beyond the cycle of death and rebirth.
That's a profound concept. The true self, almost. Clear as a mirror. So if heedfulness is the path to that deathless state,
then heedlessness, pamarda, is the opposite. Pamāda, heedlessness is the path to death.
meaning the path back into the cycle.
Precisely. Heedlessness just leads to that continuous round of birth and death, even if you manage to get reborn in those higher, super long-lived realms. The source is emphatic. Even 84,000 mahakalpas in the Arupa Brahma realm still ends in death and rebirth eventually. Not true escape.
So what causes this heedlessness? What traps beings in these cycles, according to the sermon?
It points to 2 main culprits, really. The first is probably the most obvious: sensory pleasures.
Sights, sounds, tastes.
Exactly. Delight in what it calls the paññākādhamma, the 5 phenomena: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. These are described as powerful illusions, basically. They deceive beings, make them forget their true nature, their potential, their spiritual responsibilities. They get lost in the show.
Lost in the show. Okay. What's the second culprit?
This one's maybe more subtle. Attachment to jhanas.
The deep meditative states. But aren't they good?
They're powerful states, yes, achieved through deep concentration, bringing great peace and bliss. But the danger lies in attachment to them. If someone clings to the bliss of the form or formless jhanas as the ultimate goal, they just get reborn within those corresponding realms, the Brahma realms we talked about.
Ah, so they get stuck there, even if it's pleasant for a long time.
Exactly. It prevents true liberation from the entire cycle of birth and death. The sermon really hammers home that core Buddhist teaching. All conditioned things are impermanent, Anika. And because they're impermanent, they're ultimately unsatisfactory, dukkha, suffering. And if something is impermanent and suffering, it can't truly be me or mine.
Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Right. So given all this focus on internal purity, liberation, escaping the cycle, how does something practical like giving donations like the Pha Pa offering fit in?
That's a great question. The sermon actually frames the act of giving, specifically this Pha Pa, as an act of heedfulness itself.
Giving is heedfulness. How so?
Because, it argues, giving requires you to sacrifice attachment. Specifically, attachment to wealth, possessions, and overcoming stinginess or miserliness. It's an active practice against those mental states that contribute to heedlessness.
That makes sense. And the sermon has this wonderful origin story for the Pha Pa, doesn't it? From the Buddha's time.
It does. It connects it right back. After the annual rainy season retreat, one of the monks, Phra Anuruddha, was looking for bangsakala, basically, discarded rags or coarse cloths from charnel grounds or rubbish heaps, to make his robes a very ascetic practice.
Okay, looking for rags.
But then a celestial being, a deva, who in a past life had actually been married to Phra Anuruddha.
His former wife, now a goddess.
Something like that. She saw his intention with her divine sight and wanted to help him make merit, so she manifested a beautiful piece of divine cloth, fine material, but suitable for human use, and left it hanging on a tree branch in the forest where he'd find it. She even cleared a path for him.
Wow, celestial intervention for robe material.
Right. So Phra Anuruddha finds this cloth. He carefully ascertains it doesn't belong to anyone, that it's truly ownerless. Then he formally declares it using a specific Pali phrase meaning roughly, "This ownerless cloth, soiled with dust, is suitable for me." And this act, this declaration, mirrors the way monks ritually shake or receive a Pha Pa offering today.
Ah, so that's the connection. And then he offered it to the Buddha.
Yes, he brought this fine cloth to the Buddha, and the Buddha declared it suitable to be used for a Kathina ceremony.
Kathina, that's another important offering ceremony, isn't it?
Very important. So in this story, the Pha Pa, the finding of the forest cloth, actually became the origin point for the Kathina ceremony tradition. It establishes Pha Pa as this really foundational, meritorious practice.
Okay, so Pha Pa is the origin, Kathina follows. Are they basically the same in terms of the merit or the benefits?
Well, both are considered Sanghadana. That means an offering made to the entire monastic community, not just one individual monk. And Sanghadana is always said to yield immense, immeasurable merit.
Offering to the whole community.
Right. However, there's a key difference in the practical benefits, especially for the monks. Kathina has a very strict time limit. It can only be offered within 29 days following the end of the rainy season retreat.
Okay, specific timing.
And when a monastery properly receives a Kathina offering, it grants the monks residing there 5 specific allowances or exemptions from certain monastic rules for the next few months.
Exemptions, like what?
Things like not needing to formally announce their departure when leaving the monastery overnight, being allowed to eat meals together in groups rather than individually, being permitted to be separated from their set of 3 robes under certain conditions, being allowed to possess extra robe cloth beyond the usual limit, and receiving a share of any offerings formally designated for the Sangha.
Ah, okay. Practical things that make monastic life a bit easier during that period.
Exactly. Pha Pa offerings, while still highly meritorious as Sanghadana, don't grant these specific 5 exemptions. So, from the perspective of supporting the monk's discipline and daily life, Kathina is often considered to have a slightly more significant or more direct benefit in that specific way.
Got it. So Kathina provides tangible support for the Vinaya, the monastic discipline. The sermon also tells that incredible story about Prajapati Gautami, the Buddha's foster mother.
Oh yes, a classic story illustrating the power of Sanghadana. She had painstakingly woven 2 sets of beautiful, fine cloths, specifically intending to offer them directly to the Buddha himself.
A personal gift for the Buddha.
But the Buddha, with his wisdom, gently advised her, offer them to the Sangha, the community, instead. The merit will be greater.
Why greater if offered to the community?
His reasoning was profound. Offering to an individual, even a Buddha, carries a slight theoretical risk. What if, hypothetically, that individual later disappoints or doesn't live up to the offering? The donor's mind might falter. But an offering to the Sangha as a whole, its merit is unwavering, vast, because it supports the institution, the continuation of the Dhamma, regardless of any single individual.
Ah, I see. The collective versus the individual.
Exactly. And to demonstrate, the Buddha had the cloths passed along the entire assembly of monks. They kept passing it down until it reached the very last monk in the line, a very newly ordained bhikkhu named Ajita.
Ajita Bhikkhu.
And then the Buddha revealed something astonishing. This Ajita Bhikkhu was destined to become the next Buddha, Maitreya.
Whoa, the future Buddha.
Yes. So Prajapati Gautami was overjoyed. She realized that by offering to the Sangha, her gift had ultimately reached not only the present Buddha through his acceptance of the Sangha's act, but also a future Buddha. It perfectly illustrated the boundless, unshakable merit of Sanghadana.
That's an amazing story. It really underscores the value placed on supporting the whole community. Which brings us to maybe the most unique part of this sermon, the science of merit.
Yes, this is quite distinctive. It doesn't just talk about merit or bun in Thai as some abstract good karma. It describes it almost physically.
Physically, how?
It introduces this concept of an automatic pot, like a sphere, clear and bright, located right at the center of the human body. The intersection point, it says, of a line from the navel through to the spine, and a line crossing from the right side to the left.
The center of the body, like a spiritual center point.
Precisely. And this sphere, this pot, it says, functions like our eyes or ears, but instead of sensing light or sound, it attracts and accumulates merit. It's where your bun is stored.
An automatic pot for merit. That's wild. And it says it can grow.
Oh, yes. For a major offering, like a Pha Pa, the sermon claims this merit sphere can become enormous, potentially 1,000 wa in diameter. That's about 2 kilometers, though the size varies for each person.
2 kilometers wide inside you. Metaphorically, maybe?
Well, the text presents it quite literally. It even states that those who have attained the Dhammakaya, that 9th body we discussed,
The clear Buddha-like body within.
they can actually see this accumulated merit. They can perceive this sphere. The analogy used is, just like you can see the money you earn in your bank account, you should strive to see your merit, because seeing it encourages you to want to gain more.
That completely changes the perspective. From abstract good deeds to, like, tangible inner wealth, you can actually perceive and grow, which leads right into this idea of finding merit and using it wisely.
Exactly. The sermon draws this incredibly strong, very practical parallel between handling merit and handling money.
How does that comparison work?
It uses this story, almost a parable, about a Mr. Leck. He was apparently super frugal, saved every penny, even ate water soup, just broth, no meat to save money.
Water soup economics, all right.
But he didn't just hoard it. He invested it wisely, lent money out for interest, took pledges, basically made his money work for him. He became, the sermon says, a master of money, not its slave.
Yeah. Let the money make more money.
Right. So his money kept finding more money, and he achieved financial freedom, security in his old age. The contrast is someone who just spends everything they get immediately. That's called using money until it dies. It never gets a chance to grow, leading to hardship later.
Okay, that's a clear financial analogy. How does it apply to merit?
Directly. Just as you use money wisely or unwisely, you must use merit wisely.
So how do you use merit wisely? You can't exactly invest it at the bank.
No, but you invest it mentally. The key is to focus your mind deliberately on the positive feeling, the joy, the piti associated with the meritorious act you performed, like the feeling you got during that Pha Na offering.
Focus on the good feeling.
Yes, by consciously focusing your mind on the merit, recalling the act, rejoicing in it, appreciating it, the sermon says this causes the merit to multiply. It's like a single seed or sprout that, when nurtured, grows into a plant with 4 or 5 stems. Your focused appreciation makes the merit grow.
So it's not just do the deed and forget it. It's about actively cultivating the positive mental energy from it.
Precisely. It's an active mental cultivation that amplifies the initial good deed.
And the unwise way. How do you destroy merit?
By gaining merit, maybe even vast merit from a big donation, but then immediately following it up with unwholesome actions. The example given is like scolding someone harshly right after making an offering.
Canceling out the good.
Worse than canceling out. It's described as piling demerit on top of merit. It makes the original merit inaccessible, unusable. It effectively gets destroyed or buried, just like mismanaging money makes it disappear.
Wow. So your subsequent actions really matter in preserving the value of past good deeds.
Absolutely. And the ultimate example given is the Buddha himself. When he was assailed by Mara, the tempter, under the Bodhi tree, what did he rely on? Not weapons, not arguments. Solely on the immense merit and perfections he had accumulated over countless lifetimes. That merit became his protection, his shield, the force that defeated evil. It underscores the sheer power of properly cultivated merit.
The power of accumulated good. So bringing this all together, what does this mean for us today? Thinking about these insights from, over 70 years ago now? We've gone from practical ethics, daily life stuff, into deep meditation, these spheres, the Dhammakaya, and now this almost economic view of merit.
Yeah, it's quite a journey. Well, what's really fascinating, I think, is how this ancient wisdom manages to connect the seemingly unseen, the esoteric, like this automatic pot of merit, to concepts that are actually incredibly relatable, like financial planning.
Right. Who knew Buddhist merit had investment strategies?
Exactly. It genuinely redefines what it means to be truly well off. It's not just about material wealth, obviously, but about this inner spiritual wealth that can be cultivated, seen, and even grown, both spiritually and practically connected.
And I think here's maybe the most surprising or even challenging idea from the sermon for people listening. This notion that your own merit isn't just an abstract tally somewhere. It's potentially a visible, almost measurable sphere inside you, and that you can actively make it grow. Not just by piling up more good deeds, but by consciously, mindfully focusing your mind on the joy and the value of those deeds, like tending a garden, or, as the sermon says, like making a smart investment.
It really shifts the focus to the internal experience, doesn't it? The quality of mind you bring to your good actions and how you reflect on them afterwards.
Which leads us to a final thought, maybe a question for you to ponder. If you really believe you could see your accumulated merit, your bun, as clearly as you can say, check your bank balance online.
Yeah.
How might that actually change the way you approach cultivating kindness, generosity, purity, focus?
Yeah.
Well, all these positive qualities in your day-to-day life, would it change your priorities?
That's a powerful question. If merit were that tangible, that visible, how would our actions change?
Something to think about. Until our next deep dive, keep exploring these ideas, keep questioning, and keep cultivating that inner wisdom, that inner wealth.